We are dancing, and it feels so good. The Georgia Bulldogs received their highest seed in quite some time in the NCAA tournament, and we're ready to talk about it today on the Locked On Bulldogs podcast.
You are Locked On Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back. This is Locked On Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel.com. More on them in a moment. Getting the game over at FanDuel. We want to appreciate every single one of you who are an everydayer, first listen, and loyal third segment listener. You guys are the best. You're fantastic. And you've been here the whole time talking to us and we talking to you about one Mr. Mike W. White, who is by and large, again, you can call him mediocre Mike, Florida fan, all you want. That's fine with me. I don't care. He's now taken Georgia somewhere that we haven't been in a decade, somewhere seed ranking we haven't been in a hot minute beyond that.
Try 23 years since Georgia had a seed this high or better. I got to go back to 2002.
There are no longer undergraduate students who were born when last Georgia was this high seeded.
Many of the listeners to this show right now were not alive when Georgia was seeded this high, a 9 seed coming in. Georgia has obviously, in those 23 years that we have just outlined, Georgia's only made the tournament 3 times, a 14 seed, a 10 seed, and another 10 seed, all eliminations in the round of 64. Mike White not only leads Georgia to its best season in quite some time, but he does it in the strength of the strongest conference in the history of college basketball.
How many, really quick, Daniel, how many teams from the conference that Georgia plays in made the field of 64? 64 teams are making it to March Madness. How many of those teams are from the SEC?
7/8 of the teams in the conference, Clint, made it to the dance. That's 14 teams out of the 16 total teams in the conference made it into the dance. Georgia kind of right in the middle there. There's 3 or 4 teams below them in terms of the seed lines and several teams above them. But again, Mike White navigates this ridiculous schedule. He's got the win over Florida, which you saw that Florida team. You know who they are.
I know who they are.
He's got the win over St. John's. Did you see that St. John's team? Do you know who they are?
Hold on. The ACC current.
That's the Big East.
Sorry. Big East, current Big East Conference Championship team.
And the current SEC champion. Georgia got wins over both those teams this year. A fantastic season for Mike White and company. But it's not over. And you heard him talk about it after the SEC championship game, Clint, a disappointing performance. Obviously, Oklahoma goes absolutely nuts from 3 and beats Georgia, upsets Georgia in Nashville. But you heard Asa Newell and Silas Demery and Mike White talk about it as soon as that game was over. This team's now ready to be done. This team's ready to keep playing. This team's got work left to do in front of them. And now we know that work is going to continue on Thursday afternoon in Wichita, Kansas, Clint, because this team is going dancing right there in the NCAA tournament in the Midwest region.
Yes, sir. This is absolutely to try to give it to you in terms that make sense. Okay,
make it make sense for the people.
I'm trying really hard. Look, March Madness is very college football playoff. You get a lot. You get a whole game. Football is different. For all the football fans who are listening to this, get it on basketball. Basketball's hard. There's more games. It seems shorter. It seems quicker. March Madness is rapid fire all the way through. This is like, and it's as simple and it's not lazy. I'm trying to encourage you. Georgia has been okay at times in the past. We've had some success in the past. We're not trying to fault any one person for the past. We're saying, hey, we've had great players come through. We have NBA talent that are playing at high levels right now. But the elevation that Kirby Smart came to the program and made, and that first time that we were no longer being beaten down by very bad podunk teams, but we ascended up. We were now the powerhouse. We started beating Florida on the regular instead of Florida beating us on the regular. When all of a sudden we get to playoff, we get to SEC championship games, we're winning those. To be in that conversation and to be there, to be part of, even as a 4 team, even at the end of the year when it was the 12 teams, they were whittling it down and they were doing the rankings when it was 4 teams before, Mike White has got us in. 9 seed is nothing to sneeze at. Y'all, when you make out the brackets before, when you were filling out your brackets before, you looked at that 9 matchup and you
that
started
8-9 game, and you said,
8-9 game. This is going to be a good one, and I think a 9 could make a run and upset some people and knock some people off. Now we're going to get into the second segment. The Zags, just a little spoiler, they're good. Gonzaga's good squad.
We're going to get into the Zags.
But the weight of
this is about Mike White. It's about Asa Newell. It's about Silas Demery. I mean, I don't mean to belabor a point, Clint, but the Georgia Bulldogs have made the NCAA tournament a total of 12 times in the program's history. 12 times. Georgia has won 7 games total in the history of the program in the NCAA tournament. So for Georgia to be not only in the field, but in a position to potentially win a game in the tournament, to say it's historic is not an understatement. And some of y'all, a lot of y'all, most of y'all wanted to run this man out of town because he lost to the number 1 team in the country on a buzzer beater.
You all do a roll call for me. You self-declare, just self-regulate here because it's obscene to me. It's obscene to me. You all did not know 14 teams from the SEC into the tournament. That's unheard of. Talk about historic. This is a historic year for Mike White in a historic conference, in a historically very good field of 64. This is one of the deepest fields of 64 I have seen in quite some time, namely because all them SEC squads are in there. Daniel, that's why it's the deepest squad. But to do what he did this year with the deepest talent pool that we've seen, top to bottom of roster management, not maybe upper end NBA talent guys, but depth across the talent, the entire college basketball landscape. Yes, 100%. I agree with that.
It's a major significant. Is this where we want to end? No, of course not. This is not. This is we want to continue. We want to continue to elevate. You got to take a step before you can run a race. You got to crawl before you walk. You got to make progress. And to say that this is not this is insane progress. The ascension that Mike White, think about the team he took over, Clint, over 3 years ago. That team was among the worst college basketball teams we have ever witnessed under Tom Crean. Mike White takes over. He improves every single season that he has been there.
Yeah.
Postseason play in year 2 makes it a deep run in the NIT, brings guys back, parlays that into a blue chip prospect in Asa Newell, and turns that into 20 wins and a 9 seed in the NCAA tournament. Clint, I'm not going to say I don't care what happens next because we'll get into the second segment. I want to win. But this season is a wild success for Georgia. A ludicrous success.
We're going to come back after these and let you know why we have hope for the matchup against Gonzaga. But first, these. Eating healthy doesn't have to be complicated with Factory. You get chef-made, dietitian approved meals that are ready to heat just 2 minutes so you can fuel your body with hassle-free cooking. They arrive fresh, never frozen, 40 options across 8 dietary preferences. Each week, you can customize your menu to fit your goals. Whether that's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto, it's beyond just meals. Factor also offers smoothies, breakfast, and snacks, so you always have something nutritious ready to go. Eat with Factor. Get started with factormeals.com/Factor Podcast and use code Factor Podcast. Get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code Factor Podcast at factormeals.com/Factor Podcast to get 50% off plus free shipping off your first box. But that's not all. There's also Supply House, Daniel. Supply House is great, fantastic. If you work around the house, you got HVAC and plumbing needs, get the supplies you need from the site for skilled trades. Supply House. What is plumbing, HVAC, electrical work? Supply House has a reliable way to get you the product online. Complete inventory, over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands. You'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help? Don't worry. Supply House offers support, industry-leading service. Free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies. Just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Daniel, let's talk about them Zags. You know this team pretty well. You know Georgia Bulldogs pretty well. Silas Demery, you already mentioned. By the way, he comes back next year. I already talked about it last week on the podcast on Friday. He comes back next year. He has the opportunity to be the most productive Georgia basketball player in the history of the program, hands down. He has ascended his skill level incredibly well the last month. My goodness, he was a liability before. Offensively, great defense, ball handling, and just getting buckets has skyrocketed with him. You know this team, you know the Zags. Let's preview Gonzaga a little bit, this matchup that we have with them. What's the first thing that stands out to you about this round one matchup, 8-9 on Thursday?
When you look at this, I mean, first of all, the name Gonzaga, if you're a college basketball fan, it means everything to you. You get it. Like, you understand what kind of a team we are dealing with in Gonzaga. Yeah. But then you even go to the matchup on paper, Clint, and you start to think, like, hang on, Gonzaga's a what seed? Gonzaga's an 8 seed? Like, this is a Gonzaga team that is ranked 8th in the net. That's not an 8 seed.
In the region. No, the 8th in the region.
8th nationally in the net. Like, according to the net rankings, the official rankings used by the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee, they are 8th nationally in the net rankings. 5-5 in quad 1 and 5-3 in quad 2, undefeated everywhere else. They have had a good season. They haven't had a vintage Gonzaga season, but they've had a good season. But again, they back up that 8th in the net rankings. They're 9 in KenPom. They're 9th in KenPom adjusted offensive efficiency. Like, this is
all the statistics that you and I have been using to forecast that Georgia would be going dancing and be somewhere in this 9-10 seed range. Those same exact things that gave us confidence that Georgia would get in is telling us that Gonzaga
should be a 3 seed.
Is one of the top, there you go, top 10 teams in the nation. Great, cool. Okay.
Yeah, should be a 3 seed. And now here they are as an 8 seed. And it's like, oh, okay. I don't really understand, like, how to make sense of this Gonzaga roster. Nolan Hickman, probably their best player, maybe their leading scorer. Andrew Nembhard, the point guard who feels like he's been playing NCAA basketball forever. He's a floor general. It's going to be a fantastic matchup with him and Silas Demery. He's a great assist guy, not necessarily looking to, get buckets for himself, but Graham Ike, big guy inside. I actually like Georgia's chances to match up really well against Ike. And then, honestly, the guy that impresses me most on their team is Braden Huff, who's an athletic 4-guy wing. He's tall, he's athletic, he can shoot from the outside. He's a great rebounder. He gets great second chance opportunities. Huff is a great player. This is a good Gonzaga team. Now, they lost to St. Mary's twice during the season, and that's why they weren't the 1 seed in the West Coast Conference tournament. They did beat St. Mary's in the West Coast Conference championship game, and so they got one of those matchups. But they did struggle against some upper echelon teams that they played throughout the year. They didn't quite have the non-conference schedule that or success that we're used to seeing from a Gonzaga team. Typically, they go out, they challenge themselves quite a bit in the non-conference, and they perform really well. This year, they struggled a bit in the non-conference. They lost to UConn in the non-conference. They lost to UCLA in the non-conference. They lost to Kentucky in the non-conference.
not the same UConn as previous years. Don't
Get
it
fooled. They're turning it on, but especially back then, they lost to West Virginia in the non-conference. Like they didn't necessarily come out and, probably their best non-conference win was against an Arizona State team. Like, I mean, I guess they beat Baylor early, but they lost to Purdue, and that was So they beat Indiana. Indiana's not a good team.
No,
they didn't have the non-conference schedule. Obviously, the West Coast Conference doesn't give you necessarily that big of an indicator. I'm going to give you my personal opinion, and then I'm going to give you, I'm going to validate with some facts. I don't think this Gonzaga team is that good.
Okay.
I think Georgia's going to beat them.
Here we go.
I think Georgia's going to beat them. Okay.
Now, two things can be true at the same time. My man is full up on himself because of the first time March Madness has happened in a decade. Like, I get
we out here. Real Bulldogs is out here. Like, you understand?
Okay. But the second thing that is true, what he's saying analytically, it's not wrong.
Okay.
Give us the facts.
If you're not a basketball fan, just buckle up for a second and just listen to some advanced statistic words. There's a basketball statistic that the net ranking composite uses called WAB, W-A-B, wins above the bubble. If you listen to any of these March Madness shows, you're going to hear that term thrown around, wins above bubble.
Really quick, bubble, those teams that should be in, should be out, first four in, first four out. You're on the bubble waiting to get popped.
So what that statistic means is you take an average bubble team.
Yep. And
you play them against this team's schedule and you field the results. And then you rank how that bubble team would do playing against every team in the country's schedule. Just an average bubble team.
Oklahoma had to win against Georgia in the SEC tournament. Had to go deep to get a push into this field of 64 bubble team right there. So if Oklahoma played Gonzaga's schedule.
Yep. If Oklahoma played Gonzaga's schedule, that's what a win above the bubble would look like. So then you rank all these teams based off of how that bubble team would do. So Auburn, not surprisingly, has the number one wins above the bubble ranking in the country, meaning that an average bubble team would do really poorly if they had to play Auburn's schedule, right? Yep. They would not nearly do as well as Auburn would do. Does that make sense? So I mentioned that Gonzaga is 8th in the net rankings. Would you like to know where they rank in this wins above the bubble statistic?
My guess is we're going to page 2, Daniel.
We're going south. Guess. We're going to head south of the border here for a minute. We're going to drop all the way down to 35th nationally. Okay? 35th nationally. That puts them as, like, there are no other teams outside of the, or inside the top 30 in the net that have a WAB that's that bad. No other teams outside. So this Gonzaga team is really a mystery, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yes.
There are some statistical models that look at them and they're like, they're really, really good. And then there are some other statistical models that look at Gonzaga and they're like, they're not as good as Georgia. To be fair, Georgia's WAB is 33rd. Gonzaga's is 35th.
But we're not top 10 in the net and all that, Daniel.
According to this statistical metric, Georgia has performed slightly better than Gonzaga. Rates out to be a slightly better team on a neutral court versus Gonzaga. It's going to be really interesting to me, see how this game plays out. We're going to talk a little bit more about it in the third segment. We're going to talk about if we think Georgia can win. We're going to talk about how far we think this team can go. But I'm just here to tell you, I'm a little bit optimistic about Georgia Bulldogs, and we'll talk about it right after this.
But let's know about FanDuel, FanDuel.com, the official sports book of Locked On Bulldogs, Locked On Podcast. And March Madness is here. Get them brackets out, bet on them games. It's going to be hot action the entire time. If you don't have a sickness right now, get one. Like I just
find one.
Find one. New customers get $200 in bonus bets. Perfect time for y'all to get over there when you bet first your $5 bet and you win. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even cutting down the nets. Look, we got a bunch of locks coming up. We're going to tell you some teams that we said keep an eye on. Maybe in this game, just go ahead, look at this. Look at Georgia, put a bet onto it. We love underdogs. We love Cinderella. And we love teams that are playing hot in the right moments. And Georgia has all that. FanDuel understands it. So visit FanDuel.com and get into the college hoops actions all tournament long. FanDuel.com. All right, Daniel, you laid out Gonzaga, and you're right. You started this by saying it's not the vintage Gonzaga, because what Gonzaga did was it took care of the West Coast fairly easily in years prior. If you look at that conference, yes, there are some schools that you don't know by name, but basketball-wise, they're actually okay. It's actually
coming
a
up.
conference that's coming up. There's a couple of teams that constantly make noise in the tournament that don't just look down your nose at it. However, Gonzaga has always been a team that has been hard fought, fundamental, and takes it on the road and takes it to other schools out of conference and kind of puts it on them a little bit. So that's always been the knock. Like, well, they play in the West Coast, they play up in the Pacific Northwest and middle of nowhere. But when the lights shine, they've been able to do so. You listed a whole bunch of teams that they struggled with mightily throughout the season. You talked about this variant from being good on certain metrics and then below Georgia on a bunch of others. I think you're right. We don't know. I don't know exactly who this Gonzaga team is. Are they good? Yeah, I think they're a good squad. I think they are. Is Georgia, are they better than Georgia? I'm not willing to say that right now, Daniel.
Yeah.
What's your prediction for this game? And maybe we'll break down even why you have that prediction. Maybe some things of interest of note to watch out for in this game.
Well, I think the thing that I'm going to be watching out for in this game is how high scoring is this game going to be. Gonzaga can score the basketball. They like to run. They like to get up and down the court. There have been times this year when Gonzaga has gotten into track meets with people and they have given up a lot of points. Georgia's not necessarily like a track meet, lot of points type of team.
No.
There have also been times when Gonzaga has faced a really solid defense like St. Mary's, and they have really struggled offensively, and it's been a grinded out type of a game. I think that's more the game that Georgia wants to play. Gonzaga is good defensively. They're not great. They're not as good as Georgia defensively. So I do think Georgia defensively is going to be able to slow Gonzaga down. I think we will be able to handle EK inside. And most of the teams that play against Gonzaga are not able to handle EK inside. I think we have guys that can match up with Braden Huff on the perimeter. Some athletic, tall, physical guys. I'm thinking about Dylan James. I'm thinking about Asa Newell. I'm thinking about some guys that I think can match up and move their feet and guard somebody. Box him out, keep him from getting those second chance opportunities, keep him from catching lobs from Ryan Nembhard. I think Georgia's got guys to be able to match up defensively against the Zags. Can Georgia score the basketball?
There it
is the question that I'm asking.
Yeah.
I think if this game is in the 60s and 70s, I think Georgia's going to win. I think if Gonzaga is able to get out and run and Georgia gets out and runs, I think that's going to favor the Zags. And let's just face it. This is Mike White's got plenty of tournament experience.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody got tournament experience like Mark Few does. Right? Mark Few's been in every situation in the tournament.
He's been around the block a few times.
Been there a few times. And there's guys on this Gonzaga team that have got a lot of tournament experience as well. There's nobody on this Georgia team that's got a lick of tournament experience. These tournament games often slow down. They often tend
they do.
to just grind out unless you have a team that's really willing to force the issue and push. I think if Georgia's able to get back in transition, I think if they don't turn the ball over, which they've done so much better at lately.
So well, yes.
I like Georgia in this matchup, but I just like Georgia.
I think you're exactly right. Inside, we need two things to happen. I think if I could take the first half of the season and the second half of the season, I could say, hey, if I could make a Frankenstein team from what we have off of this, bring me the offensive development late in the season by Blue Kane, by Demery, who's just been absolutely lights out for us. Asa Newell's been consistent all the way through. Asa, by the way, who came to Georgia as more of an offensive liability, but a defensive juggernaut. You talk about guys on the edge, on the perimeter that can, okay, we got that, check. Now you give me Surreal, you give me guys inside. From the first half of the season, Daniel, that defense was on lockdown after the first 4 or 5 games. We thought, okay, here we go. Here's what's going on. RJ not playing well down the stretch. I think if I could take the defense from the first half season, the offensive revelation that happened in the second half, the lack of turnovers that happened, put those together, we got Gonzaga's number on that. Because if you want to set up in a half court against us on offense, Blue Kane can shoot the lights out. Silas Emery can shoot the lights out. We can get it inside to him. And you're exactly right. Mike White, what did he do really, really well? What was he known for again, Daniel? Oh, yeah, that defense.
Mm-hmm.
What are teams that have fared well in March Madness when it comes time to do this? Oh, yeah, defensive-minded teams. Just go look at Virginia and the run that they could do. Slowing down the game, getting guys in sets, not having them run up and down. Because you really can't. Because if you blow it, you blow all your energy far too early in this tournament, it's a long 3 weeks, Daniel. Like, I know it goes quick for us, but you running up and down that court all the time, it's no fun. If you're trying to do that, the gas pedal every single game, you can't do it. I think we win this game. We're fans. We're homers. Yes.
Sure. We're not favored, and I don't think we should be.
We shouldn't.
Georgia should be favored.
No.
But
I think it's better than I would give us better than 60% chance of winning this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, quick question. Do you remember the last time Mike White lost a first round game in the NCAA tournament as a coach?
Well, that was, he hasn't been there with Georgia, has been there with Florida.
Yeah.
Florida, many successful runs. When was the last time he didn't proceed to the second round?
Well, he's never done that as a coach. Every time he's made the NCAA tournament, he's won a game in the NCAA tournament. So that's just a thing that is real. That's just real. I'm just going to tell you right now. You see Gonzaga, and you immediately think, ugh.
Yeah.
The other 3 8 seeds are Mississippi State, Louisville, and UConn. And I am here to tell you, Clint, and everybody, this is the matchup I want. When I looked at the projections, I wanted to go to Lexington. I wanted to go to Raleigh because it's a closer drive from Nashville. But when I looked at the projections and I saw who was the total, like all the teams we might be matched up against, I said, give me Gonzaga. This is the one that I wanted.
Louisville gonna knock off a hopeful title contender in their, just so y'all know. Louisville's
okay. While we're on the subject,
go ahead.
There's no chance we beat Houston, right? I mean, we did already mention we beat Florida.
Oh yeah,
yeah. They're better than Houston.
They're better than Houston.
We beat St. John's.
Oh, you mean the team that just put it on Creighton that I watched and I saw myself? I said, "Oh, they're going to make some noise in the bracket."
So we're talking about a Houston team that likes to hang on.
What do they do?
Slow it down.
Oh,
struggles offensively.
Oh no.
And if they happen to get cold from 3, and there's no chance, right? There's no chance that Georgia could.
Auburn, I know you have shirts that say doubt us. I get it. I understand. It's cute. It's fun on the Instagram feed.
We are, and it's worked out really well forever.
For the entirety that you've existed.
Yep.
Okay.
It never failed us, to be honest with you. So
I'm going to keep doing the same thing because success comes my way when it happens. He is Daniel. I'm Clint. We'll be here all March Madness long talking about them Bulldogs, hopefully making a run as we break down brackets. We're going to be coming back. More football news. Spring is in the air. There is something to get excited about because I'll just tell you this right now. There is position group changes.
Oh,
There
people
are
moving.
people moving, and one of them got me feeling some things. We'll be back all week long, every single day. Your team every day. We'll see you guys then.
See ya.